Hey everyone! Welcome to the Saturday segment. I'm Jillian Sidoti. That's my partner in crime, Jeff Holtz. And today on the Saturday segment, we're going to be talking about when you do things for people without looking for anything in return.
That's why I moved you to the other side in the middle of your talk.
I know, I saw that.
I did that because I wanted to do something for you without asking for anything. Oh, wait, I've ruined it by asking for something in return, by acknowledging it. No, but it's serious, right? I mean, people, this is, I think we've talked about this a little bit because we're talking about the Kind Morning Challenge and we're talking about how, if you do a random act of kindness, we actually did an entire Saturday segment on why random acts of kindness were important, and people should check that out. But one of the points there was that you have, and for to be a random act of kindness, you really have to not expect something in return. That's kind of part of the deal, right? But what brought this up today was the news of the day, the big news story.
Yeah, Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, as we all know, and there's all kinds of controversy surrounding that. But Jeff and I don't talk controversy.
We try not to.
No, we do not want controversy.
We try really hard not to. In fact, we almost didn't want to bring this topic up at all because of that. But I saw an article on CNN where there were some tweets that Christopher Scalia, Antonin Scalia's son, sent in response to Ruth Bader Ginsburg's death. And I thought they were very lovely. And it made me think that we need more people in the world like Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Antonin Scalia, because they had a very special friendship. And I don't think a lot of people know that. Some people might not know what we're talking about, though, Jillian, because they're not lawyers and the Supreme Court doesn't matter to everyone. Like lawyers always think everyone thinks the Supreme Court's the biggest issue in the world. There are lots of people that think that. But both Scalia and Ginsburg were very polarizing figures. There were people that absolutely loved them, and there were people that absolutely hated them, because they had completely different views. They're on opposite side of almost every single political issue. Is that a fair thing to say?
It's a fair thing to say. But what I thought was what I want everybody to remember when they start getting really angry about things, and especially as we move into this election season, is that we are all talking about human beings. Whether you agree with their opinion or not, we are all talking about human beings. So I try to always remember that, even when somebody like really pisses me off. And yeah, I said a bad word, which is why.
Yeah, well, that's okay. That wasn't that bad of a word. I think we'll let it go this time. But
I try not to. But seriously, when somebody irritates me, and this is not like something I've mastered, by the way, but I try to remember that they're human. Another human being with a different point of view. I don't always understand that point of view, and nor do I always try to figure out that point of view. So that's something that I can improve upon in my own personal life. But Jeff, read that story, because Jeff said to me, just to give you background on how this Saturday segment came about. Jeff said to me, "Hey, I want to talk about Ruth Bader Ginsburg dying." And I immediately said, "No, we're not talking about that, because I don't want to talk politics. This is not a platform for politics." And so I said, "No, we're not talking about that." And Jeff said, "Well, wait a minute. I didn't understand Jeff's point of view." So he said, "Wait a minute." And I said, "Okay, Jeff, I'm going to see your point of view." And he read something to me that I would like him to share with you now.
Right. So this is a story that Christopher Scalia, Antonin Scalia's son, shared on Twitter yesterday. And he's relating a story of one of their family friends. Well, first of all, he started off by saying that he was very sad to hear about the passing of his mom and dad's good friend, Justice Ginsburg. And he said, may her memory be a blessing for us all. And then he had a couple of things he wanted to share. One of which was at a roast where Scalia came back, because Ginsburg and Scalia were both on the District Court of Appeals together in DC. He went to Ruth Ginsburg's 10th anniversary of being on the Court of Appeals and roasted her. And at the end of the roast, he said, "There's a few things I want to share. I want to conclude with some earnest comments. I've missed Ruth very much since leaving the Court of Appeals. She was the best of colleagues, the best of friends, and I wish her 100 years. Well, he didn't get that wish, obviously, but the sentiment is very strong. And then the second story, which is the one that really got to me and made me say we really have to talk about this. This is a story from Jeffrey Sutton. Judge Jeffrey Sutton shared an encounter that he had with Antonin Scalia right before Scalia died. During one of my last visits with Scalia, I saw a striking evidence of the Scalia-Ginsburg relationship. As I got up to leave his chambers, he pointed to 24 roses on the table and noted that he needed to take them to Ruth for her birthday. Wow, I said, I doubt I've given my wife a total of 24 roses in our 30 years of marriage. Scalia retorted, you ought to try it sometime. Unwilling to give him the last word, I pushed back and I said, so, what good have all these roses done for you? Name a single 5-4 case of any significance where you got Justice Ginsburg's vote. Some things, he answered, are more important than votes.
Yeah, so I just want you guys out there, what I got from that story, which is a pretty awesome and powerful story. But what I got from that story is that sometimes you do things for people without expecting anything, and I mean nothing in return. And that goes to, giving to the homeless. What can we really possibly expect for a homeless person to give to us in return? But we should be doing those things. We should be giving to the needy. And I think it has to transcend. I think what the story tells me is that it has to transcend the needy. It's also going to transcend to the very direct people in our life, the people we reach out and touch. And so Antonin Scalia and Ruth Bader Ginsburg, did not see eye to eye on anything. And yet there were these acts of kindness with absolutely no expectation of anything in return.
Yeah, I mean, presumably they're friends, right? I mean, that's the subtext here, that they were friendly with each other. I kind of wish I had Googled this, but I remember when Scalia died, she said some very nice things about him as well. So clearly they respected each other. But they didn't agree on anything, right? I mean, they literally, I think it's true that except for in like unanimous court decisions, they were probably never on the same side of a court decision. Somebody's going to research that and prove me wrong, I'm sure. Right. Now. But the point is, you don't have to agree with someone to recognize that they're a person and that they have feelings and emotions, and not all of someone's worth and value to you is that they agree with you. In fact, if you only talk to and befriend people that agree with you, that's what I take away from this, then you have real problems. Here, two of probably the smartest legal minds in history with completely different opinions about how they do things and what they believe. They were able to forge a relationship with each other that transcended their beliefs. And to me, that's a beautiful thing. And I think that we all need more of that. Like, we've gotten into this, like, we're going to share on social media how terrible the other side is. And that's just not right. It's just not right. It's just a terrible way to look at the world. And that's what I wanted to talk about. And that's what I got out of that story.
It's funny too, because I've never known anybody to have their mind changed by being berated on social media.
I absolutely have not either. Mm-hmm. I've never even known anyone to have their mind changed by being berated, period. Anywhere, not just on social media. It's worse.
Yeah, but you can really beat a person down, right? Especially children. Like,
sure,
I feel like
but do they really change their mind, or they just concede to it? You break them. That's different.
Right. No, I feel like I've been in that place in my life before. And I've also feel like on the other side of this, I'm preaching like, oh, give without expectation. And I've done a lot of that in my life. I've also done a lot of giving with expectation and being sorely disappointed. And I think that's kind of my point, is that you save yourself a lot of hurt feelings if you can start giving without expectation, which is, by the way, it's not an easy thing to do. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not. I mean, it's very easy to live a reactionary life. And that's what you're talking about. You're talking about being purposeful in what you're doing.
Right.
And recognizing that you're doing it because it's the right thing to do. End of story. Doesn't matter what else there is.
Right. And because it's a kind thing to do or what have you. So
yeah, exactly. Whatever.
We have some comments here. This is from Wendy. If we live from a place of pure love. We live from a place of zero economy. And I'm guessing what you mean by that, Wendy, is that it does nothing matters. And we get down to a baseline, right?
That's what I take from that as well.
Yeah. So, and then Kathy's just noting that Bader Ginsburg and Scalia, they socialized together, shared good wine, played cards, spent a lot of out of court time. Scalia said she was just plain fun to be with, and both were foodies. I like food. I want to be a foodie.
Scalia definitely liked food. I know this because the one time I met him, he asked me for food advice.
No way.
He looked at me. I think he looked at me and he was like, "Look, there's a fat guy. He'll know where the good food around here is."
Oh my God. When was this?
When I was in law school.
How did you meet him?
We had him out for an event.
Okay. And so you talked to him?
Yeah. Hey, why not? That's what I do. So I met you, right? Like someone stands up on stage and talks. My strategy is walk up to them and treat them like they're a real person and they'll like you. And that's what I did with Scalia. That's what I did with Harry Dent. And that's what I did with Jillian Sidoti.
So listen, I like how you put
Although
me in the
I never became friends with Antonin Scalia, which would have been a cool friend to have.
Yeah.
Ginsburg for that. Any Supreme Court justice would be a cool.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure if you have a Supreme Court justice as a friend, that's a pretty cool friend to have. So what did he ask you for advice on food?
He wanted to know where the best Mexican food in East Lansing was.
That is the dumbest question on the planet.
I know.
I'm so sorry, may he rest in peace, but that is, oh my God. You could have named any other type of food other than Mexican for East Lansing.
No, I agree. Although I did recommend him the same place that I recommended another sort of less famous but famous political figure when he asked me that same question.
I mean, I wouldn't eat. Like, that's like dangerous to eat.
No, there is one good place to get Mexican food in East Lansing. It's a college town. So
I'm probably going to be sued by like all the Mexican restaurants in East Lansing, Michigan now for defamation of character.
Well, I do know for a fact that at least 36 Mexican restaurants in East Lansing are fans of The Last Life Ever show. They probably have definitely watched this live right now.
Oh my God. People watching. 3 of them are Mexican restaurants in East Lansing, Michigan.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We have a very strong following among Mexican restaurants in East Lansing.
Okay, so how are you going to live out this message from Christopher Scalia? It's not really a message from Christopher Scalia, it's from his late father, Antonin Scalia, on, giving without expectation this weekend, Jeffrey.
Well, I mean, listen, one thing is I'm just going to share this message. That was the first thing that occurred to me when I heard it. I was like, I got to tell people about this because this is like really important. I was seeing stuff where people were being, the end of the world has come, and I was also seeing stuff where people were like almost celebrating, and neither of those are appropriate responses to someone's death. And so I felt like it was something that needed to be talked about.
No, yeah, absolutely. Very cool. And then the other thing I do want to make mention to, we talk a lot about doing acts of kindness and give without expectation. That doesn't mean you don't put up boundaries. I'm not telling you to start like being an enabler to somebody or something like that. I want to be very clear because somebody once accused me of being an enabler.
Sorry, I'll try not to accuse you of that again. Oh wait, that wasn't me. Never mind.
Yeah, but there, or even when we talk about giving to homeless people, or the key to homelessness and homeless people is the word people, that these are still people, and no, you don't want to enable anybody, but there is a element, definitely an element of where you want to put a boundary.
This is what Frank McKinney talked about on our show, and so if you haven't seen that episode, you should check it out. So Frank McKinney spent time living as a homeless person by choice while he was on a book tour, and he talked about what he learned meeting over 10,000 homeless people in the course of several months.
Yeah.
And that was my key takeaway, was that you have to think about homeless people as people. And that's the same key takeaway that we have here. You have to think about people that have different beliefs than you as people. And I think this is true across political spectrums, religions. I know people when I was traveling in the Middle East would say, "Oh, I would never go there. All of these Islamic people are terrorists," and and all this stuff. This is just not true. Like, they're people. Everywhere you go in the world, there are people. Everyone who has a different opinion of you is still a person. Like, some people are maybe you're going to get along with them better. I get that. And, you don't have to be best friends with everyone, but at the same time, you have to recognize the humanity around you, and you have to appreciate it for what it is.
Oh, and there's definitely people you should stay away from. But Antonin Scalia wasn't going to stay away from Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Right, they worked together. They had.
So you might as well be kind to her. So, and then the other part of it is too. This is one thing about like that I think is an additional permanent scar from September 11th is that we forgot that there are other human beings out there outside of the United States of America. And that's really unfortunate. And I'm hoping that we get towards that. I don't see it getting better, particularly with the way people are rude to each other on social media. I just feel like a lot of times these people wouldn't speak this way to people's faces. And
wait. You don't think that you would tell people that you've never met, like in a mixed crowd, that they were dumb and that their ideas didn't matter? You wouldn't just
I don't think I would do that.
Crowd and be like, "You're dumb. Your ideas don't matter." And I can't believe you say something so stupid. But I don't think it's from 9/11 though. I mean, you might be right, but I think it's a social media phenomenon completely. I think it started with the advent of 24-hour cable news. And people became more informed, right? They spent all this time learning about things that were already happening. And there's some good and some bad from that stuff. Learning about things going on in the world is important. But what happened is the stuff that got reported regularly was the stuff that was dramatic and scary and that caused a visceral reaction. Well, when you start causing people to react to stuff all the time, it's like the little boy who cried wolf, right? You just start seeing all this bad stuff, and then you start cementing your own opinions, and then you start, okay, well, I'm a CNN guy, I'm a Fox guy, I'm an MSN, whatever, and then pretty soon you start looking at the other side differently, and then you don't know anyone on the other side because they're all hanging out watching different cable news, and then right around the time when that started to get to be a problem, all of a sudden you had MySpace, Facebook, all of these social networks just appeared all at once really fast. And then people started becoming even more cliquey, and they started spending more time thinking about how their opinions were right. And you got so insulated that you could live in a world now where you never meet anyone that has a difference of opinion of you except for online. And then it's acceptable to yell at them and tell them they're dumb.
Well, I just want to share, this was on my friend Melody's Facebook this morning. And I think it goes to exactly, what we're kind of talking about, which is that no one bothers to like really research anymore, right? So you only find information from one side. So here's a picture of a guy, with a scar on his face, Joker without makeup. That's really disrespectful. He was clearly injured in some sort of way, may it be war or what have you. He's probably so depressed his face is scarred like this. He has to wake up every day seeing his own face. Why would you make fun of him like this? And then a very nice word there at the end. And then all these people are like, oh my God, you're a terrible person. You're a terrible person. You guys do realize that this literally is the Joker without makeup. This is Heath Ledger in The Dark Knight in a scene where he's hiding in a group of policemen.
Right. Well, that's just it. I mean, that's exactly right. That's exactly what's happening in social media. So many memes, so many things. And it's almost impossible to sort through it.
Yeah.
And that's causing us to do this. Well, I'm just not going to even worry about it. If someone shares something that's outrageous, I'm just going to ignore it. And I'm guilty of this. Like, I stopped watching the news.
Yeah.
I don't know if that helps or not. It makes me feel more centered, but it doesn't help me to be uninformed either, right? So now I have to figure out how to stay informed without, getting agitated all the time. And it's tricky. It's a tough thing.
Well, the thing that bothers me a lot too is that news headlines are very misleading. And so then people will just read the headline and not the article itself. And that can be incredibly frustrating.
Sometimes people share headlines and they're like, look at this is outrageous. And then you read the article that they shared and you're like,
that's not what it says at all.
It's not even really that.
I know.
But this happens with the stuff like, there's these discussions about, this thing came out or that thing came out, it doesn't matter. Like right now, everyone's talking about, Netflix shows and how terrible Netflix is or whatever. Right. And I don't have an opinion about that. They might be terrible. They might be great. But the point is, like, I don't know hardly anyone that's even paid enough attention to actually check and see what's actually going on, right? They're just literally like somebody told them it was bad, so now they're mad at Netflix, and it doesn't matter. Insert your whatever you're arguing against, right? I mean, and there's definitely bad stuff in the world, so I don't want to minimize that. But this idea that we should just have these visceral reactions to every single thing that happens is.
Yeah, again, you got to remember they're human beings, and this is. And so, I have a lot of friends who constantly watch cable news, and it depends on which cable news they watch, on which opinion they have. And one of the things I explained to one of my family members, who shall remain nameless, was when they were explaining to me that all the cable news they watch and how they try to stay informed, and to which I said to them, why do you watch all that cable news? And the response was, we got to be informed. I'm like, informed about what? Informed of what's going on in the world. I was like, so, and when you get informed, what are you going to do to change it? Well, I can't do anything about it. Well, then why are you watching it?
Yeah, I know. I've had this same conversation with one of my family members. It's like, okay, yeah, that sounds terrible. What are you doing about it? Like,
yeah, and they'll
call me up and be like, "Can you believe X, Y, and Z happened?" And I'll be like, "I never even heard of that. I don't even know what you're talking about."
Yeah,
like, this is the biggest.
You gotta have channel. Like what I've explained to people is I take a 360-degree view. What can I personally change, and then I pay attention to that, and I focus on that, and I focus on how I can change on that. So, like for example, by the way, this isn't limited to just like what's happening in your own backyard. I want to be very clear, but like my friend Katie, who's in Mozambique, Africa, what ended up happening was one night I was having an identity crisis myself. And I thought, I'm wondering, what I can do, because I'm not volunteering. I'm not doing the things I should be doing, I feel like, and I'm having a little bit of an identity crisis. I had this post I put on Facebook one night at 3 a.m. when I was thinking like, I'm just not doing enough charitable works or whatever. I was having a little crisis. And one of my friends said, my friend Cynthia said, you need to meet my friend Katie. She could use somebody like you, use your help. And it turns out Katie had, this calling to go to Mozambique, Africa, and stop human trafficking. And I knew very little about human trafficking at the time. This was many years ago. I knew very little about human trafficking at the time. I knew very little about the effects of human trafficking and how it just infiltrates entire communities. And then it almost becomes like the local authorities become completely helpless about human trafficking. Now, what could I do about that? Well, I could donate money and I could become more informed. And it's not right in front of my face, and it's not something I can touch physically right here in my own backyard, but there is something I could do about that. So I focused on that. So I'm not saying don't pay attention. I'm saying pay attention to something that matters to you and then work towards fixing that or working on that, because not me, not you, not anybody else can solve all the world's problems. So find a problem that you can work to. You might not solve any problems, but find a problem that you can work toward solving, and then just focus on that. So and that's it.
I think what you're talking about is you're talking about how to effectively allocate your resources to benefit people or the world, right? And it's different for everyone. But I think about this a lot. Like, if I'm going to give dollars away, I could give them to, some big national organization, whatever, pick your cause, right? And it might help some, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. Those organizations have a purpose and a role. Or if I am exposed to someone, and I try not to talk specifically about, where I give because I think it's a little bit weird. But in this context, I will say this. So I have a friend who's struggling a lot right now, and he lives in Tanzania, and his son wasn't able to go to school because he didn't have the money to pay for the schooling, and it's not like that much money. It's $700 a year. That's how much it costs. So I could give $700 to my friend in Tanzania, and his kid can go to school for the year. That makes a big difference in this kid's life. Or I can give $700 to XYZ giant charity, right? This is what you're talking about. And it's not even just giving money, though. It's the same thing with time, knowledge, awareness. If you come on our show and talk about your friend's charity in Mozambique, it makes a difference.
Yeah.
Somebody might reach out to you and say, how can I get involved? How can I help? Or they might say, I didn't even know this was an issue. Right?
I actually Facebook argued with somebody the other day. And in my Facebook argument, I brought up the charity, and somebody else was like, I'll give $1,500 to that charity, and literally gave $1,500.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Mean, and by the way,
it goes against what we were saying about how social media arguments don't actually help anything, but apparently they do help in some limited circumstances.
I think if they're well structured, right? Okay. So, okay. Wendy, I see one of your comments up above. I feel like I'm at a table with you guys, but I'm invisible. It says 1 viewer. So I thought I'd show up for 3. Maybe I'm only supposed to just listen to you to both visit. I've never tried to follow a live group. I don't think I belong. No, you belong.
Wendy, you definitely belong. Listen, what's happening, just to be clear, we're on multiple platforms at once. So if you're watching inside of our group, you might be the only person watching in that group right now, right? Yeah. But there are other people watching on like Jillian's Facebook page, my Facebook page, and we see the count of all the different sources. Yeah. Except for the YouTube people, because when it's streaming live to YouTube, we don't get to see who's watching there. So you're not by yourself. I promise.
No, you're not alone. And please keep watching. No, keep watching, keep commenting. But Wendy did have this great comment up here. Society doesn't need a reason to hold back care or compassion. Research the socioeconomic class that you want to help. Be smart, be loving, and be authentic. And that's so true. You got to mean what you're doing.
About, right?
Yeah.
It's if you recognize that these people are people, then you can treat them like people.
I mean, look at the famous people who commit suicide. What must have been going on in their brain?
Yeah, like, can we help that person, right? I mean,
just these are wealthy people who are living lives that only people would only dream of. Like, I think about Chris Cornell was on tour living his dream, and he committed suicide. You know,
and Anthony Bourdain is another one, right?
Anthony Bourdain, Chester Bennington.
He traveled the world eating food.
Yeah, I mean, all of these people.
With Scalia and Ginsburg.
Yeah. So I know, right? Yeah. So my point being is, you just never know what somebody else is going through. So you always, and that doesn't mean you don't stop bad behavior or you don't put up a boundary around bad behavior. Yeah. I did it the other day to stop what I perceived as harm to somebody else. But it doesn't mean you let people get away with things. You just understand, just like Antonin Scalia and Ruth Bader Ginsburg understand each other. We're human beings, and they didn't let their personal opinions and quite frankly, their life-changing opinions get in the way of humanizing each other.
Right. Yeah. Don't dehumanize people. Recognize their people and figure out how you can work together on things that you both agree with, and your life will be much, much better.
And we'll end with that.
Yeah, we should, because we got to go.
We got to go. Everybody, thank you so much for watching today. This was a super fun episode for me in particular. I don't know what to say about Jeff, but check us out on our podcast every Monday. We have a podcast, Last Life Ever podcast, where we interview interesting people doing interesting things. They can be ordinary things. They can be extraordinary things, but they're always interesting. Any final words?
They really are. And we have some really interesting guests coming up. We do that live in our Facebook group. So if you haven't joined the Facebook group, we know Wendy has, because she was in there talking about it. It's Last Life Ever private group.
Yeah. On Facebook. Awesome, guys. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend. Jeff, any final words?
Yes. We just want to remind you to live the very best version of your last life ever.